What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another super exciting Art of War tier list. It's Tier List Tuesday. You know what that means?
Yeah, it's time for a tier list.
That's right. The game has experienced a lot of changes recently. We got a balanced data slate. We got a minute to one field manual. We also got like 4 or 5 codexes in the past month. We also got a new mission pack, new secondary deck, challenger cards.
I'm still reading some of the new missions, right? Like
Every game I play is a new mission. We're one at a time through this.
yeah, it's tough right now. So I'm very excited. The game's in a very exciting place at the moment.
Yeah.
And what's kind of crazy is we're not quite done yet.
No, we have a lot of stuff coming up. Also, if you want to know more about these changes, we have tons of YouTube videos covering all these various different changes. And in the war room right now, we have different state of the factions releasing for every single faction in the game, talking about how these new changes apply to you. And we have games with all these brand new armies. And soon we're going to have that mission breakdown series where we talk about all these new missions and how they play.
I'm very excited for that. I'm probably going to watch that myself, to be honest.
Hell yeah.
And then last week we actually did a tier list ranking all the armies in the game as well. So you're kind of thinking about like how your army is kind of sitting. We gave generally a pretty good opinion, I think, of most of the armies in the game. So
that's right. So now we played a bunch of games. We were kind of digesting all these new rules, and we want to talk about what changes we liked, and maybe we'll also cover what some of the changes we didn't like. But mostly we're going to be ranking our top 10 favorite changes of Warhammer. I just want to tell everybody that we appreciate all of your endless support for this channel. So if you want to keep on supporting us, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe. It really helps us continue growing, continuing improving our content, and putting out more content for you. And if you want that more content that I was just mentioning, check out the warroom.vhx.tv in the link below.
The Army Painter is my favorite hobby company in the entire world. My desk is literally full of Army Painter products, and it takes me from being an average painter to putting above tabletop standard models out into the tournament scene. Not only that, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive play than any other hobby company in the industry. They allow us to keep doing the things that we do. If you enjoy the Army Painter as much as I do, head over to thearmypainter.com where you can use the discount code ARTOFWAR5 to get a discount on your next order.
Okay, let's get into Drukhari. All right, so there's a few changes we want to break down. Basically, they reworked how the Reaper's Wager rule worked.
Yep.
The way it is now is that if you're winning the Rager, you're just going to get reroll ones to hit, which is kind of the same as before.
Yep.
But if you're losing the wager, instead of just not getting anything, you now get reroll ones to hit and reroll ones to wound.
this is actually like a really big deal, right? Because this means that you are getting an army rule no matter what all the time, right? And also kind of is a weird dance in the opposite direction now. Like now you want to lose the wager.
Losing is actually
Good.
better.
Yeah.
Which is maybe I have not played this detachment much. Richard has put it on the table a few times. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going to translate to on the table gaming. But the thing I like about it is that we get an army rule instead of working really hard to sometimes get an army rule.
Yeah, I think this is a really great change. It's going to make the army flow a lot better, I imagine, for many of the pilots. And then the points changes are going to end up being quite nice as well, right?
Yeah, and we've already gone through all the points in detail and the balance data slate changes in detail in different videos. We're not going to speed run through all that, but generally speaking, Mandrakes came down, and like the Raider came down, the Venoms come down, the Ravager comes down. These are all units that I see in Drukhari armies all of the time.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the Raider come down. It's like one of my favorite Drukhari models. It's just so iconic, and I just haven't seen it much this edition. So I'm hoping maybe we can see some more cool pirate ships.
He's 75 now. How do you not take a Raider at 75?
Dude, pirate ships are cool, and I want to see them all on the table.
Me too. So that brings us to number 9.
Number 9 is going to be the Death of Cabal points for Thousand Sons Ray and the entirely new redesigned Cabal of Sorcerers casting rule. I have loved this change on the table. It has entirely changed how the army plays. You are no longer stuck in like a big castle ball, like being like, please don't touch my Ruperine.
Yeah, if I lose my Psychers, I can't play Warhammer.
Please don't touch my Master. I need my Cabal points so bad. But now I can just like beat a 5-man Rivermarine squad, no character, up into the earth, and he can go Doombolt and kill a bunch of stuff. And guess what? It's okay.
As from the opponent's perspective, I think in both cases, Thousand Sons just got all their powers off. It's not really any different. But what I like is I don't have to try to keep track of what your endless options of spells are and Cabal points. And you know, it changes every turn based on who's in a Rhino or who I've killed. And it's really easy to just slip up on that.
Yeah, it's so much more fluid now, right? Like it's very obvious what I can do exactly every single turn. I'm kind of imagining we're going to get into a design space eventually where I'm no longer allowed to infinitely attempt the spells, right? I imagine we're going to get to a space where eventually where I just get 4 attempts. I can get to resolve 4 spells, and that's just it, right?
That would be pretty cool. I'm very happy also that along with the new designed Cabal system, we also have like a slightly less high ceiling on all these different powers. Instead of take away all your armor saves, it's -2 AP. Instead of Magnus moves 14 more inches, Magnus moves up to 6.
Yeah, it's a significantly better balance, and I like that there was a little give and take on these. So rituals all used to be basically 18 inches, but now they're 24, so you get a little bit more safety. Doombolt, you can still get Super Doombolt, right?
It's just not just like automatically you're dead.
Not an automatic D3+3 mortals anymore, and now you kind of have to work for getting those D3+3 mortals. Right. What's also cool about this design is they baked in casting better into the army, right? Being next to a Mutalith gives me +1 when I channel. Magnus is inherently a better caster. There are enhancements to cast better. Like if you really want to pump the math on getting the better spells off, it's very easy for you to do, right? So it's really cool. It's a very nice self-balancing like mechanism. Right?
I like it quite a lot. I think they might still want to tweak, like you said, the number of casters that get to attempt the spell over and over and over again. It's like, could there be a consequence to failing it? But overall, from where it was to where it is now, super happy about that.
Just a great change overall. And then this is going to lead us off next into another Chaos Army at number 8, the Death Guard.
Yeah, Death Guard got a whole new book and a series of new changes, but the thing that I think you're most excited about is how their new army works.
Yeah, so they basically took the build a plague, build a disease, whatever you want to call it, and it's now just in every single Death Guard detachment with just some minor balancing tweaks, right? I believe the minimum OC 1 on the subtraction from the OC is a very good change, right? The -1 save staying the same is a really good change. I overall like that this makes it so that not every single detachment is competing with this rule, because when Grotmiz came out and Flyblown Warp Host came out, it was just like, okay, well, I don't get build a disease, so why would I ever play this? Because it's like the best rule Death Guard can ever possibly imagine in a single game of Warhammer, right? So being able to play any detachment, and it's also flexible. I love flexible rules. That's going to be something like for me as a player, I always like really enjoy to see, and being able to flexibly pick a disease every single matchup, that's just great. I think that's great Death Guard flavor.
Yeah, the fact that prior to this new codex, new design of the army rule, it was just like, you could play the one detachment that has 4 army rules attached to it, or you could play the other detachment, which lets you scout 6 inches. Ooh, yeah. So now there's real purpose and real validity to every single detachment. Of course, some might be stronger than others, but it's not just hands down, don't even show up. And it's similar to Thousand Sons. Both of those armies were kind of married to their detachment because all the rules were tied to their detachment, not their army rule.
And what's really cool too about the build disease is different detachments want different contagions, right? Say if you're playing like the Poxwalker spam one, maybe you want like the -OC, -move one, right? If you're playing the Mortarian's Anvil one, you're going to want -1 save for your Plague Burst crawlers and stuff like that, because you pick the contagions. Like, there's so much good stuff here. This is just a great, once again, design space change. Death Guard probably just needs some minor tweaks because their points are just a little too cheap at the moment. But past that, I think the army's actually in a really good place.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of Death Guard being like a slow-moving, durable debuff army. That's a really cool concept that no other army's trying to fill.
Exactly, right? There's like no other army out there that's like trying to be that debuff controlling faction, right? Because like control is like a big thing in like a lot of other tabletop games, but Warhammer doesn't quite capture it, but it kind of is in Death Guard.
Well, you cool. Slow down. My Eldar will control.
Okay. It does exist there, just in a different way.
In a different way, yeah. Speaking of a different way, we have a whole brand new way to play this next army at number 7.
Yeah, the Tyranid detachment is going to be our next change here of the new Subterran Assault. It's really cool. Like, it's just a really, really cool detachment.
It's all about the burrowing snakes and Molochs and Raveners coming up and like eating you from the ground. Yeah. I'm so glad this is getting love and attention. I think it's so cool.
And actually putting tunnel markers on the table that you can then tunnel between with the stratagems. It's just so cool. Yeah. I read this and I genuinely think this might be like one of the crown jewels of design success from GW from this edition. I can't think of another detachment that is thematic, that looks as cool on the table. Like genuinely putting a tunnel marker on the table, I just think is so like tactile and cool.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people using custom tunnel markers, like it's burrowed and stuff. It's so cool looking. And then it creates a lot of room for play and counterplay because your opponent can just walk near a tunnel and destroy it, but also good luck walking near the tunnel. And then things like, Screamer Killers is something John's been talking about. And that's a data sheet I literally have never seen competitively. It's slow.
But being slow
is a death sentence. But hopping in the hidey hole, hopping out of a different hidey hole, whack-a-mole, the Screamer Killer.
Yeah, I really enjoy the flexibility of the detachment, the cost/benefit of this detachment.
Yeah.
Since the tunnels can be picked up, right? This isn't like some uninteractive thing, but if your opponent sets up a really cool play, a really cool way to use the tunnels, they can get rewarded for that.
Right.
However, you do have the opportunity kind of to stop that plan. So it's a very interactable army rule, which is also really cool.
It reminds me a lot of Chaos Demons and their index attachment with 6-inch deep strikes and all that good stuff, but I feel like they do it so much better.
I think so too. I think the other thing too is the data sheets from Tyranids like lend themselves a little better to the style, like the guerrilla warfare of it all, right? Like you can't
happening all over.
You can't exactly guerrilla warfare the Grand and Clean one anywhere. So
everyone else is guerrillaing Great and Clean one.
So yeah, I think I was really happy with this attachment. So we can kind of move on to number 6, an army I really enjoy, the Speed Freaks.
What a change!
Yeah, this baseline is really quite powerful, right? Like just being able to advance or fall back, shoot and charge is great.
That's an amazing set of rules. I mean, you see Stormlance with it, and that's like rocking top tables with Space Marines.
Yeah.
Apply it to the Orc army.
The asterisk on this is we still have some data sheet problems, right?
They all got cheaper.
They all got cheaper, but they still have some problems, right? The buggies, small rant on this. So between 9th and 10th edition, right, the twin links change. How orcs, like guns, were mostly balanced is that they had a ton of shots, but they hit on 5s.
Yeah.
And now a bunch of orc buggies lost a ton of shots and then got twin links stapled onto them.
Runes is...
Which is, twin linked is a good rule. However, if I don't hit you, it quite literally does not matter. Right. So the volume on those buggies was actually really important, but they took it away.
Yeah.
So now they just don't hit you. And Speed Freaks has ways to make you like crit 5, like lethal, crit 5 sustain, and like do some really cool stuff with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. But I also just want to hit my opponent without the stratagems.
Well, now you can look at your Speed Freaks army like a charging melee army, as the orcs intended.
Yeah.
This gun line.
So I think it's the shape of it has changed quite a bit. I think you can look at this maybe as like a jail style list.
I totally agree.
With like a bunch of buggies running around and like Def Coptas firing from a distance and along those lines.
I think competitively at a practical level, this army is going to be super rare. Like who owns all these buggies and Def Coptas and all that and then decides I'm going to bring this to the table. But there is always that guy. And then beyond that, from a competitive standpoint, a viable standpoint, I think that the profile of this army is like enormous, right?
It's
like
huge.
It's huge. You're not hiding it. You're not trying to hide it. You're going forward and jailing your opponent. And if the metas wince and wane, but a lot of times that is a really viable style to win the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really am excited to eventually get a good try on this. I am working on some hobbying on some Def Coptas. Hopefully we'll get there eventually. So I would really like to see this. Very cool change. I am very excited that they gave orcs a little bit of love in the Speed Freaks land because this is a detachment we have seen basically none.
I love that they are taking these detachments which are like otherwise forgotten and like, you know, this is a whole subset of the orc model range that like does not see the table, and they'll try to give it some love. I think that's so much better as a balancing mechanic than simply just taking the top and lowering the ceiling of it.
Yep, I would agree. And especially since 40K is all about like different players love different things. There are so many Speed Freak orc players who have been like desperate this entire edition to like really be able to like play the game the way they want to. And I like that they finally gave it to them, right?
Yeah, me too.
Just cool.
Speaking of giving things to people, our faith has been rewarded, fellow Sisters players. Coming in at number 5, we got a slew of changes here. The Champions of Faith detachment now just works. Instead of having to discard Miracle Dice to trigger your rules, you just get to pick 3 units and trigger your rules.
Way better.
That's so much better. Feels better. It is better. It's just awesome. And then on top of that, because that was not enough, our sisters were really hurting for wins these days. We got points drops on the Immolator, the Castellator, the Volgons, Seraphim, all of my favorite data sheets. It's great.
This is a little scary for me as a victim of sisters at one point in my life. And we creep every day closer back to the day that sisters ruined my life.
Oh.
Do you think we're there yet?
No, so I have tried sisters a lot with these new points and these changes. I think sisters are very strong. I have a game in the morning right now where I played against Mr. John Lennon's Dark Angels that I did well, so you should definitely check that out. But overall, you get enough stuff as a Sisters army, which was fundamentally one of the problems before the points drops. You didn't have enough stuff. So now we have enough power, we have enough stuff, and we have good rules. The thing that's holding us back currently is we have like a little bit of a limited data sheet range. At the end of the day, we have the 1 wound toughness 3 girl, and we have the tank. And you can slap different weapons on these things, but that's what we have. And it's hard to win 40k with functionally 2 different types of profiles.
Yeah, that is a weakness I hadn't really thought about with sisters before, to be honest with you. I mean, you have kind of the sword and shield girls, but
They're trying to be durable, trying to be a different data.
yeah, but it's not different enough.
Still
It's still a 1 wound sister running around on the table. Yeah, it's kind of hard. You don't really have that mid-sized profile. It's kind of the Volgons.
Yeah, it's the Volg, but they're not cheap enough to actually be a mid-sized profile. The only reason we see the Volgons is because their damage is actually astronomical.
Insane. Yeah.
But their defense per point is horrific.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some sisters on the table again.
I think so too. I mean, we're putting them on the table. They are not a bad faction. I don't want to do anything besides praise the sisters and the wonderful changes we got. Let's not get the story wrong. I just don't think they're a top tier, S tier, awesome faction with all of these buffs. They maybe were that in the Bringers of Flame days where they were way cheaper and the meta was different, and the Bringers of Flame's attachment was also stronger back then too.
We're still nerfed from this.
That is still nerfed, right? So now we're working with our other detachments or this nerf version of Bringers, and as cheap as points are now, they're not what they were on Codex release. So it's not quite the same as the OG sisters you are scarred by. But it is a fun, strong, good, like I would call it an A-tier faction. All right, so that's enough about the sisters. Let's move it on to number 4.
So number 4 is going to be the Ynnari changes. Now, competitive scene-wise, this is going to be a really big shakeup. Ynnari were a major competitor in pretty much every front. Teams, singles, they won a ton of events. The army rule was really quite powerful. The detachment rule was really quite powerful. And this was even an army that you also played a bunch.
Yeah, absolutely. So I picked it up for Team America. I've also played it for Art of War in its predecessor form. Not when it was nerfed. It was insane. Like I don't think I lost a game in a tournament across 2 different events.
Which is like insane.
That's a great place to start. It's pretty good.
So the detachment rule picked a pretty big nerf on the, what power, is it called power from death? Is that right? Or something along those lines? It's the move when you die, basically.
Yeah, so it used to be whenever a unit died in your opponent's shooting phase, at the end of that phase, you could pick one of your units on the table and just make a normal move with it. And in Eldar, your normal moves are like stupid fast.
Yeah.
Especially because you can stack tokens.
Moving 14 inches at the end of your opponent's shooting phase is pretty powerful.
Pretty good. You can walk away from charges, you steal objectives, you set up for a really good alpha strike in the next turn. Options are endless. You might even do many things.
Yeah.
Now, instead of that, one of your units that is either infantry or mounted, so no longer the Wave Serpent or something like that, it has to be within 6 inches of your other unit that is dying. And when the final model gets pulled, you still have to be within 6 of it. And then at the end of the shooting phase, you can move D6 plus 1.
Ouch.
That's just triple nerf. That's the coveted triple nerf. We're changing what units can use this. We're changing when it triggers and how it triggers. And the effect is also getting hit. And like, these are not slap on the wrist. These are bad.
Yeah, they told you to just stop playing Ynnari. Actually just stop playing this army.
Yeah, well, as if that was not enough, which it was. They then slapped 10 more points on the Incarn, took Cat Lady and took her reroll wounds and turned it into reroll 1s to wound, and then made all your commonly taken Ynnari units like the Incubi or the Cat Combo or your Autarch Banshees, all of them more expensive.
Yeah, this is like 15 baseball bats, and they're just like beating the corpse of Vervain.
Do you know the meme of like the guy beating the horse?
Yeah.
It's not even a horse anymore. It's a pile of bloody organs, and he's still going.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. I am expecting to never see Ynnari again until they receive some compensation buffs.
Dude, this is the Ynnari graph. Like, they were broken in 8th, they were not seen in 9th, they're broken in 10th, gone. You know, it's just the way it is.
I am very excited Ynnari got changed because they were a really big problem and they really interacted with the game in a really unhealthy way.
Right. I'm an Eldar player these days, and I was enjoying Ynnari, but it felt too good. It felt like my opponents... They felt like they was powerless, you know?
Yeah, you could just do like a little bit of whatever you wanted. There were like so many situations where I was like playing Tactical Brigade in Ynnari, and I was just like, so the correct decision for me here is to actually skip my entire shooting phase.
The fact that so many people decided to skip their shooting phase against me, this is like too powerful. That shouldn't be game design.
And that was like the genuinely correct decision.
Right.
If you can't actually pick up enough in the shooting phase, like you just pick up a unit or something like that, you are actively giving the Ynnari army power.
You'd also just like layer out all these little traps and just see which ones your opponents walked into. Like sometimes I would double move Banshees in your opponent's shooting phase to then heroic intervention. Oh, your charge just doesn't work now. And it's kind of endless how much jank you can pull.
There were 500 rakes on the table. And then like the Inari opponent would point at you and be like, you idiot, you stepped on that rake.
Yeah, you know.
You idiot, you stepped on that rake too. But you can't see them and you're wearing like sunglasses.
And also you're barefoot.
And you're barefoot. So it's kind of twofold here. Very good there, your Inari changes, but they were too heavy-handed. This is definitely like a step, like 5 steps too far.
Yeah,
right?
Inari's no longer detachment, and maybe that's probably not what we should have been going for, but it is what happened. The nice thing is that Eldar is still a totally viable faction, and despite the fact that Inari got nerfed and Eldar took some nerfs as a whole faction, like Fire Dragons going up, Banshees going up, they didn't just nerf Inari and then make the faction unplayable altogether. They even gave us points drops on things like Shining Spears and Warwalkers, which were desperately needed. And like, genuinely, I think Eldar is like perfectly viable right now. I'm even doing a group coaching class on it in the Word.
Yeah, and we actually had a really good game recently of you playing your new Warhost. I was playing my Thousand Sons, one of my favorite games we played, and I really liked it.
Nice.
And then next up, we are going to go to number 3.
Number 3 is going to be an all-encompassing change to our lovely friends, the Chaos Knights. They have received a whole different type of stat line.
Yeah, so the War Dogs are going to go from T10 to T9 with 14 wounds now.
Yeah.
And then the Large Knights are going to go from T12 to T11, but they have more wounds. Some of them have a varying amount of wounds depending on how large of a knight we're discussing at the end of the day, but more wounds nonetheless.
And not only did their toughness and wounds kind of shift ratios a little bit, but their OC changed too. Small knights are now 6 OC, while big knights are 12 OC, but the part I love is that the OC actually degrades.
Yeah, I forgot about that change as well. That is a really big deal. I am really enjoying this knight change. When I first read this, I felt a little disappointed because it's very easy to point at all the breakpoints that matter now.
Yeah, Strength 5 being an actual weapon against the Chaos Knights, that's a real thing.
Yeah, like las cannons being strength 12, and all of a sudden that's also really quite relevant into the large knights. But I played a game against it and I was like, wow, I'm like actually feeling these wound changes like quite a bit. Like the War Dog spam list picked up like an extra 26 wounds.
Yeah, well, not only that, but because like the breakpoints do matter and those wounds, help account for it, they also got a little bit cheaper. So now there's like just more dogs or big knights on the board.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot more wounds on the board that you're playing against, but it's all easier to do damage, which kind of, in my opinion, makes the game feel more fun because like more of your army is viable in the matchup.
Yeah.
And like you're just kind of grinding through an endless pit of wounds.
Yeah, because like for me, this was like a concern I was running into with my new like Space Wolf army is that I'm an army of strength 5, and I was like, okay, what do I do if I run into like an army of knights that are all T10?
Yeah.
Like how do I
fix it.
how do I actually kill this, right? Other than predators. I was like, does all my melee just do nothing? And now with the changes, it makes all of my stuff significantly more better, which feels really quite good for me. It's still a big wound breakpoint, right? But I can play the game.
And just from a mathematical perspective, like it's not just like +1 to wound, it's double the amount of wounds, 6s versus 5s. And then on top of that, what a risk you run is, of course, like you do a lot of damage, you do the best damage you can, but you left the knight on 2, you left the knight on 3, and OC 8. Oh, it's your objective still. I guess I'm just losing. But no, now it's actually degraded down to OC from 6 down to 4, I believe, and that's much better.
Yeah. And the ability to just like not randomly die to grenades or randomly die to like all the mortal wounds that exist in the game, right? Because that was an easy way that most armies could cheat the toughness on a knight, right? Is grenade, tank shock, any other mortal wound ability available to them, and then just like the knight just dies for free, right? So this is a better change.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the way they're designing knights now. I think it's a little less binary. Can you deal with me? Can you not deal with me? It's more of an actual faction, and I love that.
Yep. Really great changes overall. I'm very happy with this, and I think we can shift on over to number 2 now.
One of the changes I'm most excited for is the CP changes to Gilliman and Calgard.
Yeah, this was such an annoying army to play against.
God.
Like 20, they functionally had 25 CP.
Dude, I play against Space Marine players all the time in tournaments. They all the same army, and they all would just do whatever they want. Armor of Contempt, smoke launchers, throw a grenade, advance and shoot this, advance and charge that unit, CP reroll on every phase of the game somehow, and they would still have more CP than me.
The amount of just because ballistas Overwatches I received because it was just free. And then they would hit a 6 on the last cannon and like do some stupid amount of damage that was just annoying. But they would never do that like tactically in a regular game with a regular valuable CP. So I'm very excited to actually get to play the game against Ultramarines, and they'll face consequences for their actions. If they fail in advance, they will actually fail the advance.
Yeah, I cannot wait. CP is like an economy resource that is very valuable and is a big part of the game. And when Space Marine players just don't have to care about that because they have infinite, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, especially since there was so much 2-up armor spam in that list, and they were
Everybody's Armor of Contempt.
yeah, and they're just like
time.
all AOC all the time, smoke all the time. It would just led into a very frustrating play pattern. So I'm excited to hopefully see a little more dynamic of a Marines army. I also think that this nerf brings Ultramarines in line with the other kinds of Marines.
Yeah.
So that means you're going to see more than just Ultramarines at a tournament. You're going to see Blood Angels now. You're going to see Space Wolves. You're going to see Dark Angels. I mean, you might even see Black Templars because Black Templars even got some love here, right? Like, just a really good overall net change.
And that brings us to number 1, numero uno. The Dark Gods are pleased because Bastor and the Disco Lords are back on the menu.
This is another excellent change because the Disco Lord was a data sheet I don't think I've ever seen on the table in the entirety of 10th edition. It just doesn't exist.
They took some genuinely god-awful data sheets and they made them really cool. And these are like very chaosy, very unique data sheets that should be really cool and good.
I agree, because like Vashtor, for instance, is like the new villain that they introduced, right?
Yeah.
And they gave him this sick new model and they like gave him this whole theme and identity. Except he wasn't even that good at that theme and identity. But now he's really good at it.
This ain't no Venom Crawler. This ain't the Accursed Cultists are broken. This is Vashtor. This is Vashtor and the Disco Lords. This is like a thing. So just going through it. Disco Lords glow up in like every single stat. They move 14 now. They have higher strength. They have more AP. They have more attacks. They have more damage. And they have better rules. They now do more mortals to enemy vehicles and they buff your other vehicles as they shoot them. And then Vashtor, he became a lone operative, that Demon Prince.
Great change. Love this. That is probably my favorite change out of all of these.
He also gained strength. He also gained AP. He also gained attacks. He gained damage on his sweep profile. He like, what didn't he get? And his hazardous rule got better too.
Yeah, I think that we can like legitimately see these data sheets at the table now. I think the Disco Lord is a for sure. Like we will absolutely see this guy in like Renegade Raiders or something along those lines. And then Vashtor will potentially be seen. I think he's gonna have to get
He's a little more niche.
He has to get solved a little, right? Because this whole thing is buffing the data sheets of demon engines, but there's not like exactly a big demon engine spam list that actually exists out there at the moment, right?
I've tried to write that. It leaves a lot to be desired, but I'm very excited for the Lord Discordance. Like you said, I think they're like, I have lists that have 3 of them, and I'm excited to get those on the table just to try it. But they're viable in almost every detachment. Like Renegade Raiders make them crazy. In Packbound, they're also crazy.
I could see that, yeah.
They have great enhancements in pretty much all of the different detachments that you can slap onto a Lord Discordant, and who knows how diabolical he can get.
Yeah, Lord Discordants have always been a great enhancement carrier, right? And that's where some of the enhancements in CSM kind of got lost because they didn't have a good, because Demon Princes weren't exactly the best yet.
Okay.
And then they didn't have the Lord Discordants in order to hold them, so it was just kind of like, I guess I'll put this on a Chaos Lord.
And that's like, whatever.
It's just fine.
It's fine.
But now this is sick.
Now they're sick. They're sick. They're faster. They're tankier. They have a 4-pin. Well, now, like, what is not to love? They've literally just gotten better. And you know what the best part is? They didn't go up in cost.
No.
Yeah.
I was really surprised about that because I thought this was a pretty big glow up, and I thought maybe, I don't think they're necessarily too cheap at the moment, but I thought they were going to kind of just play it safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like that they're not playing it safe, but without breaking the game. Like, if the Disco Lord is a little overtuned, nothing crazy is going to happen.
Nothing crazy will happen.
It's not like Thousand Suns triple moving Magnus into your deployment zone.
Man, that was a time.
That was a time.
That was a time in our life. I will never forget the day I discovered I could do that.
Well, these are just 10 of the awesome changes they've come out for the game. They've, like I said, had tons of changes. You know, codex releases, new missions, new challenger cards, new this, that, whatever. We're breaking it all down in the world, so you don't want to miss that. Check it out in the link below, thewarm.vhx.tv. But I'm really curious to hear what your favorite changes are and what you liked and what you disliked. Maybe you disagreed. Leave a comment letting us know what you think.
Yeah, I would really love to read some comments about some other changes that I think maybe we missed out on or something along those lines. There's some really cool stuff out there, and I'm curious to see what the public thinks.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Very eager to hear your comments on this one, so definitely drop a like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and we'll catch you later.
Yeah, bye now. Thanks for watching.